On page 196, we need to go ahead and go over Act 1, scenes 1, 2, and 3, since you were supposed to watch those videos on your own. Now, hopefully you did that. If not, sucks to be you.
Hey, I got a question. Can we see all of this?
Yeah, pretty much.
What do you mean?
Yeah, good one.
Sorry.
It
says Abram and then
Abraham. It's interchangeable. They're the same person.
Okay.
Okay. Excuse me. If we don't get through scene 4, you have to read it on your own.
Ooh, let's get to it.
That's called torture.
Okay. So we need to go over scene 1 first. We're going to start with scene 1. So can someone please read me their summary? Blair, go ahead.
Both sides of the family servants started fighting, then the cousins started fighting, then the men of the house began to fight. The prince comes in when they stop fighting, and he threatens to kill them if they don't stop fighting. And then Romeo is sad and walks alone at night. Romeo says he's in love with someone.
Okay, good. So at the beginning of that, that's when we have the fight. Is it relevant to what's happening right now?
Huh?
What is your
No.
question? Okay. So we have the fight at the beginning, and then finally the prince comes in and he's like, stop. Like, this cannot happen anymore. Because how many times has this happened? This is the
3.
third time, and he's like, we cannot have this happen anymore. It's disrupting town. People are getting hurt and getting killed, and it's not okay. And if you do this again, I'm literally going to kill all of you. Okay? It's in my power to do so. So they're like, all right, we'll chill. We'll be fine. So then we learn about the feud a little bit more, and then we actually get to meet Romeo. And what is he like?
He's
Depressed.
depressed.
He is depressed. He is way overly
Like you
dramatic
said, he
about
might be
everything.
YOLO.
So he's in love with this girl, right? And so because he's so in love and she doesn't love him back, his whole world is just falling apart. Okay? And during the mornings, during the night, he just walks around in the forest, okay, ambling on, talking to himself.
It's
and
like
then he gets
boy.
home, and what does he do when he gets home?
Cries and cries.
He gets to his room,
Shuts the door.
shuts the doors, shuts the curtains, makes his room like a black hole, and he just sits there. He just closes himself off completely.
He's gonna be blind.
Who do we think he's in love with?
Um,
We don't know right now. We don't know because he won't tell Benvolio who he's in love with. Later we found out that he's in love with Rosaline. Now, the reason that Shakespeare doesn't tell us right away is because we assume that it's Juliet, right? Because who else would it be? That's who we talked about in the prologue. We talked about the star-crossed lover. It's the title, okay? But at the beginning of the story, he doesn't even know who Juliet is, which makes it all the more dramatic when he all of a sudden falls in love with her. Okay, so right now he's in love with a girl named Rosaline. Some people say Rosalind. Kind of up to you. I might say it 2 different ways. You never know. It's whatever comes out of my mouth. Okay, so that's the end of scene 1. What is Benvolio's solution?
He takes him to this party.
We're going to go see some hot girls.
The Capulet party.
You're going to forget all about
We're gonna see
Rosaline,
some legs.
and everything is going to be fine. Okay, so that's the end of scene 1. Now, scene 2. Who can read me their summary for scene 2, please? Somebody I have not heard from. I want to try to spread the love a little bit. Christopher. What?
Lady Capulet says I'm getting too old to fight the Montagues. As she says,
Lord Capulet.
Lord Capulet.
Yep.
As she says it to Paris, he can.
He.
Oh, as she says that, Paris asks if he can marry Juliet, and she says yes if they can talk. If they talk to each other at the Capulet party, then Romeo reads the list and realizes that Rosaline is there, so Romeo decides to go there and crash the party.
Okay, good. Really quickly, just a clarification. Paris is talking to Lord Capulet at the beginning.
Is that was a lady Capulet?
No, it says Capulet.
Cause
Go look. I guarantee it says Capulet.
he was like,
I'll put
oh, but so many girls. I have like. what do you
Okay,
want to
right.
like?
So here's the deal. Lord Capulet and Paris are talking, and Paris wants to do what? Marry Juliet. And why does Lord Capulet say no? Because she's too young. How old is she?
13.
She's 13. What's Paris's counter argument? Girls younger than she.
Our mothers. children.
Yeah, girls younger than Juliet are already moms. Like, she's not too young, and we're all like, yes, bro, she's too young. Like, it's too young.
You got too much
And the
testosterone.
reason Lord Capulet doesn't want her to get married yet is because he's seen how marrying girls so young can kind of ruin them. So he's like, she's all I have. She's my only child. Like, I want to keep her for as long as possible. But, he says, but, if you woo her, and, which means what? What happens when you woo someone? If you get her to fall in love with you, and if you come to this party tonight and you see all these pretty girls and you still love Juliet, then I will be more confident in my choice in you. Okay, so he's got a couple of stipulations if Paris is actually going to marry Juliet. Now, it is kind of grody. Now,
I think
Capulet takes the list of everybody who's invited and gives it to the servant. And what's funny about that? He doesn't know how to read. He's like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm gonna find this dude who can
Go
help
to
me.
school.
And who's the guy?
Romeo.
Romeo. He comes across Romeo and Benvolio. And why is that ironic?
Because everyone can go except the Montagues.
Okay, because everyone's pretty much invited except for the Montagues. And Romeo and Benvolio are Montagues. So the servant's like, thanks for helping. If you're not a Montague, you can come to the party. And they're like, well, we're just going to go anyway. Okay, so they're going to go to the party anyway. And Benvolio really wants to go because that's the perfect solution to Romeo's problem, right? At that party, his swan is going to look like a crow because there's going to be so many gorgeous girls there, right? Now, why does Romeo want to go to the party? Because Rosalind's going to be there. That's the only reason he's going. Okay, so that's Act 1, Scene 2. All right? Now, moving on to Act 1, Scene 3. It's between Lady Capulet, Juliet, and the nurse. Who can read me their summary for Scene 3? Someone I have not heard from yet. So far, I've heard from Blair and Christopher.
Elliot.
Who's got a good one? Becky, go ahead.
In this scene, Lady Capulet talks to Juliet about marriage. Juliet really isn't down for it. Her mother tells her about the other girls in town and about Paris. Juliet says she will check out this man, Paris, for her mother. She tells her mother that she won't take interest in him.
Good. Okay, so Lady Capulet's like, it's time for you to get married, and Juliet's like, I'm really not ready for that. Okay, and then the nurse comes in, and she plays kind of an important part. What do we learn about the nurse's characteristics?
Pretty much raised.
Okay, so she pretty much raised Juliet, and she is loud. She's talkative. She makes a lot of dirty jokes. She's kind of just too much. She's just too much sometimes. And so, when the nurse finds out that Lady Capulet wants Juliet to marry Paris, the nurse is like, oh my God, yes, girl, he is so good looking. Do it. Go for it. Get yours. This is going to be good. So she like goes on this whole rant about how Juliet needs to marry this guy because he's a man of wax. That's what she calls him. He's a man of wax, which means he's perfect. Plus he's rich, right? He's a count. He's got some influence. So he is a catch. So the nurse is going on about how she's got to marry this guy. Okay? At the end of that scene, she says, go girl, seek happy days to happy nights. You're going to be so happy if you do this. And Juliet's like, okay, whatever. We'll see. I'm not really into it. All right? So, any questions about scenes 1, 2, or 3 so far? No? Okay, now before we move on to scene 4, I want to make sure that we all understand which characters are on which side of the feud. So get out your character sheet. What I want you to do is, well, we're going to make a key. So at the top of your character sheet on the very first page, I want you to draw a circle, and in the circle I want you to write Capulet. So we're going to circle all of the Capulet names.
Can we write down that?
I don't care, as long as you remember. Okay, so put a circle on your character sheet, and in that circle I want you to write Capulet.
Is it gonna be like a?
No, just like a circle, so that you know that the circled ones are Capulets. So it's like a key. So like,
We got Lady and Lord. We got Queen.
so Capulet, and then I want you to draw a triangle or a rectangle, and the rectangles are going to be the Montagues.
Oh, it doesn't have to be big.
No,
Oh.
as long as you realize that you're going to circle the Capulets and you're going to
So it's kind of
try.
like keys.
Yes, it's a key. It's like
Oh, I
it's
thought
like
it
a
was
map.
circling the
We're circling the Capulets. We're putting a rectangle around the Montagues. Now we're going to go through this in order. I'm going to say, hey, what's the next character? You're going to say the character name, and I'm going to say, and they are, you're going to say either Capulet or Montague. But some people don't have a side, so we're just going to call them neutral. Okay?
Leave that blank.
Neutral's a triangle.
You can do that way if you want to.
Let's go.
Okay? So, who's the first character or characters?
Romeo.
Chorus. What side are they on?
Neutral.
Neither. They are neutral, so we don't do anything. Who's the next character? Samson. Samson is a?
Capulet.
Capulet. Very good. You're going to circle Samson. The next character is?
Gregory.
Gregory. Gregory is a?
Capulet.
Whoa, we have some conflicting
Capulet.
opinions.
It's a Capulet.
Gregory is a Capulet. I want you guys to say these together. Okay, say the character name, say which side they're on. So far, Samson and Gregory are circled because they're Capulets. Okay, who's the next character?
Abraham.
Abraham is a?
Montague.
Montague. So put a rectangle, go to the next page. Who's the next character?
Balthazar.
Balthazar. Balthazar is a?
Montague.
Montague. Who's the next character?
Benvolio.
Benvolio is a
Montague.
Montague. Good. Who's the next character?
Tybalt.
Tybalt. Good. Tybalt is a
Capulet.
Capulet, because Tybalt is Juliet's cousin. Very good. Do not say the wrong thing on purpose on this next one, because all it does is confuse people. Okay? Say the right answer. The next characters are
Lord
Lord and Lady Capulet, and they are Capulets. So you circle them.
Montague.
Okay, the next one. What did I just say? Don't.
Hey, the next page they are
The
Montague.
next one is Lord and Lady Montague. They are rectangle.
They're giant.
I keep saying triangle. Okay. Who's the next character?
Montague.
Aeschylus. Aeschylus is who is that guy?
He's the prince.
He's the Prince of Verona. So which side is he on?
Neutral.
Neither. He is neutral. Okay.
Yeah, he's
Good.
gonna kill both of them.
Who's the next character?
Romeo.
Romeo is a
Montague.
Montague. Good. Who's the next character?
Paris.
What?
Paris.
Come on, liar. Paris is the next one. Which side is Paris on?
Montague.
Neutral.
He's a Montague.
I want you to think about that.
Capulet.
Oh,
Capulet.
Oh,
He would be on the Capulet side because he wants to marry Juliet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Romeo.
So Paris is circled. Who's the next character?
Rosaline.
Rosaline is a
Capulet.
Capulet. Very good. Capulet. Juliet and Rosaline are actually cousins, so at least he keeps it in the family tree. Who's after Rosaline?
Nurse.
The nurse is a
Capulet.
Oh,
Capulet.
you got it, man.
Okay. You should be saying this together. This is interactive. Okay. So who's after the nurse?
Juliet.
Juliet is a
Capulet.
Capulet. Thank you. Who's after Juliet?
Mauricio.
Mercutio is a
Montague.
Montague. Very good. Mercutio and Romeo are best friends. Shut your trap.
The
And who's the next one?
Friar
priest.
Lawrence and
Friar Lawrence and Friar John are both what?
Neutral.
They're both neutral. Okay.
They're
Good.
priests, bro.
What they say?
What?
Friar? Is that like how they say father?
Kind of. What?
Friar. Can you please?
Catholic.
Not a lot yet. We don't have a lot written up for characters. Okay, so right now we're going to go ahead and start reading Act 1, Scene 4. Now here's the deal. There are 3 characters in Scene 4. We have Romeo, we have Benvolio, and we have Mercutio. This is them on the way to the party. So we're at a street outside of the Capulet house, and they're just kind of talking and stalling a little bit before they go in. Now I would like some volunteers to read some of these parts. So, who wants to be Romeo?
I'll be wrong.
You want to be Romeo? Okay, who wants to be Benvolio?
I'll be Benvolio.
Okay, who wants to be Mercutio? Okay, now there's a really, really long spiel by Mercutio, so I'm going to cut you off about halfway through so we can talk about it, and then I'm going to read the rest of it, okay? Just so you're aware. But here's the deal. I'm still going to stop every once in a while because I need you to understand what's going on, so if I start talking, you just stop talking. Also, it is very important for you to read the stage directions, which is like right here. It says, enter Romeo, Mercutio, Benvolio, with 5 or 6 other maskers or torchbearers, because that tells us who comes in. Okay, it tells us how many people are on stage. So it's Romeo, Benvolio, Mercutio, and they're with a bunch of dudes, all carrying torches. They're wearing masks, because that's what you do to the party. Yep. Okay, which also helps them because now they're like, you can't tell that we're Montague.
From the Old Spice commercial, they wear like bear mask, and then all of a sudden the lady comes in, takes it
I
off.
have no idea.
Ah, you haven't seen it.
No, I have not. Okay, so go ahead, Romeo. Go ahead and start us off.
What shall this speech be spoke for excuse, or shall we without apology?
The day is out of such proximity, we will have no Cupid hoodwinked with a scarf, bearing a Tartar's painted bow of lath, scaring the ladies like a crow keeper, nor know without book prologue faintly spoke after the prompter for our entrance, but let them measure us by what they will. We'll measure them a measure and be gone.
Okay, so right away at the beginning, Romeo's like, should we tell anybody we're going? And first of all, that's a stupid question because it's a Capulet party, so they shouldn't let anybody know that they're Montagues. Secondly, Benvolio's like, no, because we're just going to stay for a little while. We'll maybe dance a couple songs, and then we'll leave. So it's not a big deal. Okay? So then Romeo says,
Don't believe just watch.
Romeo,
Oh, give me a torch. I am not for this ambling.
ambling.
Being but heavy, I will bear the light.
Okay, right there. Romeo tells us again how he's feeling. He says, being but heavy. So how does he feel? He feels sad. So he says, being but heavy, I will bear the light. So what's he going to carry? He's literally going to carry the torch because then he's like, well, at least I'm carrying some light.
He's annoying.
He's annoying. He's a little annoying.
I don't
Yeah.
know why.
Okay. Mercutio says,
Nay, gentle Romeo, we must have you dance.
We must have you dance. And then Romeo says,
Oh, no, not I believe me. You have dancing shoes with nimble soul. I have a soul of lead. So stake me to the ground. I cannot move.
okay, so there's a pun. And there's quite a few puns in this section as well. He says that Mercutio has nimble soles, which means that what kind of soles is he talking about?
Light, fun, barefoot.
On his shoe.
Like your shoes, right? He has nimble soles so he can dance. But Romeo has a soul of lead. What kind of soul is he talking about there? Like his soul. So he cannot dance because his soul is too heavy, because it is lead, because he is depressed. Okay?
This guy.
Again, he keeps saying this over and over and over again. So then Mercutio says,
You are a lover, Beryl. Keep his wings and soar with them above a common bound.
I am too sore and pierced with this shaft, too sore with light feathers, and so bound. I cannot bound a pitch above dull woe. Under love's heavy boards do I sink.
burden do I
And
sink.
to sink it in it.
Hold on. Okay, so right there he says he is too sore and pierced by his shaft, which means that he is too sore from being shot with Cupid's arrow that he cannot soar. So again, a play on words. He's too sore, so he cannot soar as in fly. And he says, under love's heavy burden do I sink. Mercutio.
Hey, I'm right
And
here.
to sink in it, should you burden love to great depression.
Okay, now something you need to understand about Mercutio is that he's a very good friend. He tries really hard to make Romeo feel better, and he's also a giant goofball who won't shut up about a lot of things. He likes to make jokes as well. So when he says, and to sink in it should you burden love too great oppression for a tender thing, he's like, you should not feel this way when you're in love. Like, love should not make you want to just like crawl in a hole and never talk to anybody and just be sad all the time. Love is tender. It's supposed to make you feel good. And Romeo's response to that is,
Is love a tender thing? It's too rough, too rude, too
boisterous.
boisterous. It's pricked like thorns.
Yeah, so he's like, no, love is not tender. It's supposed to make you feel like crap. He's super emo. If he were to live now, he'd be the kid with like the super long hair in front of his eyes, like walking around. Have you seen the Lorax?
No.
Like
Yeah.
the one dude, like the little, he like there's the gray kid with like the black and
the
he's
one son of that.
yeah, and he like plugs. He's got his headphones in all the time. Like that's Romeo. Okay, isn't his name Romeo? Is it?
Baby.
I think it is. Well, I'm gonna have to watch that tonight. I'm pretty sure it is. Yes, real quick. Okay, so then Mercutio says,
If love be rough with you, be rough with love. Prick love for pricking and beat love down. Give me a case to put my
visage.
visage in. A visor for visor. What care what curious eye doth quote them for me. Here are the battle brows shall blush from.
Okay, now as she's reading Mercutio's lines, I want you to picture him being very, very pompous, very overly dramatic. Like, if love be rough with you, be rough with love. Like, he's like so overly dramatic. And then immediately he changes the subject and he's like, give me a mask because I am ugly. Look at my bushy eyebrows. Because he's trying to get Romeo to feel better. So he's absolutely ridiculous. Okay? So then next Benvolio says,
Come knock and enter, and no sooner in, but every man betake him to his leg.
so they're talking about dancing, and Romeo says,
A torch for me, let wanters light of heart, tickle the senseless rush with her heels. For I am proverb with a garnished phrase, I'll be a candle holder and look on. The gamer was near so fair, and I am.
okay, so right there, he's saying that he's not going to dance, but what's he going to do instead?
Look,
And do what?
nothing.
He's going to be the...
Stalker.
No, look.
He's gonna hold the torch.
He's going to hold the torch. He's going to hold the light for everybody, and he's just going to be, standing in the corner. Okay, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay? So then Mercutio says,
That duns the mouth, the cap constable's own word. If thou art done, well shall or draw thee from the
Meyer.
mire of save your revenants love, wherein thou stickest up the ears, me burn daylight.
Okay. Something you need to stop every time. Something you need to understand is that when they say hoe, they're not calling each other hoes. It's literally, it's just a way to be like, let's go. Okay?
Tally ho.
So he says, yeah. So he says, come, we burn daylight. Ho. He's like, we're burning daylight. Let's go. You have to not do that every time, though. Elliot, don't worry about it. Just close the computer. Thomas, you have to not do that every time because it's not what you think it is. Okay? So then Romeo says, Romeo.
Nay, that's not so.
I mean, sir, in delay, we waste our lights in vain, like lamps by day. Take our good meaning for our judgment, sits 5 times in that era, once in our 5 minutes.
And we mean well. I'm not going to this mask play.
Mask.
But 'tis not wit to go.
Why, may one ask?
I dreamt a dream tonight.
And so did I.
Well, that's what's yours.
Okay, hold on. So right there, Romeo's like, I just don't think it's very smart that we go to this party. He says right there, but 'tis no wit to go. And Mercutio's like, why? And Romeo says, well, because I had a dream tonight. And Mercutio's like, so? I had a dream too. And then Romeo's like, well, what was yours about? And Mercutio says,
The dreamers often lie.
so what's he saying about dreams right there?
They lie.
They lie. They're not necessarily true. Like, they don't mean anything. It's just a dream. So then Romeo says,
And bed asleep, well, they do dream things true.
okay, that's a very clever play on words right there because he twists it to make his own meaning. He says, Mercutio says that dreamers often lie, and Romeo jumps in with in bed asleep, while they do dream things true. So he takes it and he completes the sentence to let Mercutio know that he believes that his dream is true. Okay? Now, Mercutio is going to jump into this whole big dream that he had about Queen Mab. So if you look on the side there, it says, Mercutio talks of Mab, queen of the fairies, a folktale character well known to Shakespeare's audience. His language includes vivid descriptions, puns, and satires of people, and ultimately he gets caught up in his own wild imaginings. So in trying to make his point to Romeo that dreams don't mean anything, he rambles on about this dream for like a good, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 minutes. Okay, it's a very long monologue. So Hannah's going to read the first part, and listen, you need to ascertain from this part what Queen Mab looks like. What are her characteristics? Okay, because it's very interesting. Go ahead, Hannah.
Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. She is the fairies' midwife, and she comes in shape no bigger than an agate stone.
Agate.
Agate stone. On the forefinger of an elder man, drawn with a team of little
Atomies.
atomies, half-lords men.
Students participating in ninth period need to be dismissed to the lunchroom at this time. If you are not attending and have an excusable reason, you need to let Mr. Hilker or myself know as soon as possible. All students in ninth period dismissed to the lunchroom at this time.
I don't have
Okay, Hannah, keep going.
As they lie asleep. The wagon spokes made of long spinner legs, the cover of the wings of grasshoppers, her trace of the smallest spider web, her collars of the moonshine watery beams, her whip of cricket bones, the lash of bill, her wagoner a small gray coated
Gnat.
gnat,
Yep.
not half so big as a round little worm, pricked from the lazy finger of a maid. Her chariot is an empty hazelnut made by the joiner squirrel or old grub. Time out, oh mine, the fairies coachmakers.
Okay, so what is she being described as? How can we tell, like, what size is she? What does she look like?
Tiny.
She's very, very tiny, and how can we tell that? What's her chariot made out of? A little hazelnut shell, right? Her wagon spokes are made of spider legs. Her whip is a cricket's bone. So she's very, very tiny, and, you know, we assume that she's beautiful because it's all very fanciful. It's all very, you know, centered on nature. But this next part, and this is where I'm going to take over, is saying what she does each night. And what she does is she travels through people's brains, she travels over their lips or over their hands, and she makes them dream about certain things. So I want you to gather what she makes certain people dream about. There are very specific answers to this question, okay? So it says, and in this state she gallops night by night through lovers' brains, and then they dream of love. So there's an example right there. What do lovers dream of? Love, because she gallops over their brains. Or courtiers' knees that dream on curtsies straight, or lawyers' fingers who straight dream on fees, or ladies' lips who straight on kisses dream, which oft the angry Mab with blisters plagues, because their breaths with sweetmeats tainted are. Sometimes she gallops o'er a courtier's nose, and then dreams he of smelling out a suit, and sometime comes she with a tithe pig's tail, tickling a parson's nose, as he lies asleep, then dreams he of another benefice. Sometimes she driveth over a soldier's neck, and then dreams he of cutting foreign throats, of breaches, ambuscados, Spanish blades, of health's 5 fathom deep, and then anon drums in his ear, at which he starts and wakes, and being thus frightened swears a prayer or two, and sleeps again. This is that very Mab that plaits the manes of horses in the night, and bakes the elf locks in foul sluttish hairs, which once untangled must misfortune bodes. This is the hag, when maids lie on their backs, that presses them and learns them first to bear, making them women of good carriage. This is she. Then Romeo says, Peace, peace, Mercutio, peace, thou talk'st of nothing, which basically means shut up, you don't know what you're saying. Mercutio says, True, I talk of dreams, which are the children of an idle brain, begot of nothing but vain fantasy, which is as thin of substance as the air, and more inconstant than the wind, who woos even now the frozen bosom of the north, and being angered puffs away from thence, turning his face to the dew-dropping south. Benvolio says, This wind you talk of blows us from ourselves. Supper is done, and we shall come too late. Let's go already. Romeo says, I fear too early, for my mind misgives some consequence, yet hanging in the stars, shall bitterly begin his fearful date, with this night's revels, and expire the term of a despised life closed in my breast by some vile forfeit of untimely death. But he that hath the steerage of my course direct my sail. On, lusty gentlemen. Then Benvolio says, Strike drum. So that beginning part there, Romeo says, I fear too early, I think we're going to the party too early, because he still has just a really bad feeling about it. He says there is some consequence yet hanging in the stars, and then he talks about an untimely death. So he has a gut feeling that something at this party is going to spur a whole bunch of bad things to happen. Okay? But then he says, But he that hath the steerage of my course direct my sail. On, lusty gentlemen. He basically just says, you know what, my friends want to go to the party, I'll just go with them, it's going to be fine. So he ignores his own intuition, okay, which is definitely a fatal flaw. He should have listened to himself, but instead he just succumbs to the peer pressure and he just goes with his friends. And then Benvolio says, Strike drum. And that's the end of Act 1, Scene 4. So make sure that you summarize this scene, look back if you need to, but make sure that you have all the important parts for Act 1, Scene 4.